All right. Well, first of all, good morning and hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I just came from the ECMA festivities last night, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling inspired. It's nice to reconnect with old friends, and I feel like last night was just a great experience. Like, I don't know, healing in ways.
Healing.
In a weird way, yes.
Yeah, I think coming together with people has been something obviously we've been missing over the last while, of being able to actually be near each other and just that closeness of bodies. Like you feed off that energy in a way you can't any other way.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons why we're sitting down here today is that you recently have released to the world your newest project. And that's sort of why we're here today. But there's a lot, I guess as someone who's looked at your work for years, like I probably not the biggest fan in terms of like knowing every lyric or anything, but we've sat together and talked about your work many times. And this project, I will say, is my favorite. It's hard to say that in light of like where it kind of came from or its genesis, I think, which I want to get into with you. But I think you've moved up. I think you've leveled up. And there's a lot I want to dig into about that.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can do some of that. But one of the things that really hit me later after listening to the album for a little while, and everybody go stream the hell out of that thing till Quake gets some physical copies, which we got to get on them about. The Darkroom title, talk to me about where that came from. Because I think that opens up, I think that's a key that you gave the audience right off the jump to kind of take a look at this whole thing.
Well, in my basement, where I've done pretty much all my recording,
Right.
I have this red balloon lamp, and Dylan Guthrow gifted it to me after the Celebrate the Struggle album. You remember it had the red balloon?
Yeah.
So it kind of, sometimes I turn all the lights off and I just let the red balloon rock in the room, and it gives this red glow. And I noticed one day, I'm like, this kind of looks like a dark room, like, you know, in photography.
Yeah.
And then I kind of started delving deeper into it, and I'm like, well, down here is kind of where I'm developing my ideas, the pictures in my mind, and I'm putting it together.
Right.
And I'm kind of like, okay, there's kind of a double entendre here. And then if you want to take it a layer deeper, I was going through the darkest period of my life. So I'm down in this room trying to develop these ideas or these pictures in my brain that have stemmed from the darkest period of my life.
Right.
So it's kind of like 3 layers to it.
I love that. It took it in a different direction than I thought. Coming at it from purely like almost a fine arts way of thinking photography, there's other layers to that hit me.
Okay.
They're very similar.
But that's the beauty of music, you know.
Big time.
It's like somebody might get something completely different off of, like I had it the other day on Instagram. I've been posting these acapellas so people can hear the lyrics more and everything. And someone said, did you mean this by this? Like it was like a line later and they're like, did you mean that? I'm like, no, I didn't, but that works. Like that, you know what I mean?
I think that's where people are making art. And I'm always trying to tell musicians that you're making art and leave that space. I think so many, especially in the rap field, people want to say their shit and you take it the way I said it. Like there's a lot of that. Like, you know what I mean? I'm putting you in your place kind of thing. But when you embrace the art of it, it's like, that's cool.
That's exactly why I didn't answer. Because I wanted him to leave it up to his interpretation. Exactly. There's this big thing that, there was this big hip hop classic debate. It's been popping up recently though. It's like, over Jay-Z, I sell water to a whale. So like, is he saying whale or well? I'm a hustler, I sell water. And then they asked him, what did you, he's like, that's the beauty of it. What do you think?
In a way, you get to write all of those bars. Because they all can, like all of that exists.
Yeah.
The thing I want to go back to about the Darkroom though is to develop a photograph, you first have to take it. So you had to sit with what I could imagine in light of the loss of your best friend or very close friend of yours, Pat Stay, rest in peace, Pat, and the loss of the end of a relationship as well, a long-term relationship with your girlfriend. You have to look at all that, and I'd imagine it's like a sea of grief. And to pull out an image in that is the first step to me, is that you had to sit with that sea of grief, that montage of grief, and pull out a frame, because you can't develop something if you don't put some parameters around it to develop it. The other thing that I think is genius, that blew my mind about this title, and I think it opens up the whole album for me, is when you develop, you take a negative and you develop it into a positive.
See, I wasn't.
And that is
what
when you see a photograph, like I know for most people watching, you have no idea what that is. But when you have an actual physical photograph in your hand, that's a positive. But they come from the invert, which is the negative. So if I took your picture today, your jacket being black would be white on the negative.
And the negative.
So it literally is taking that process. So that room sounds to me, am I wrong to say that room was where you, how does that feel to you? The idea that you took a negative and made a positive.
And I was taking negatives and making it positive, but I'll be honest, I didn't even make that connection with the pictures being negative, turning into.
I mean, that's how that process works.
It's crazy. That's crazy. That's the beauty of art. There's so many layers and you can interpret it your own way.
Is it hard to hear positive about that album? Like, you must be proud of it as an MC. There's lots we can get into about that. But for me, I don't mean to go to like a dark place right away, but that album wouldn't exist if certain things hadn't happened. And it must be hard in a way to hear praise about it.
I don't know if it's hard to hear praise. I love, if people love it and it moves them, I love to hear those stories. You know what has been hard for me to do though? Has been to really promote it as much as I would like to.
Yeah.
My favorite song on that album is Daddy is a Legend, dedicated to Pat's kids. Yeah. But something inside me feels like if I keep posting this, it's almost like I'm promoting something as a result of his death. It doesn't feel right. So on one hand, I want the entire world to hear it and hear this beautiful, special moment.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I kind of feel like guilty.
Yeah.
For promoting it.
Fair.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it's been something I've been trying to work through and I don't really have the answer for it yet.
That's the hardest song for me to listen to on that album. And it's not because of what it's talking about. It's because of what you're talking about. It's hard to embrace it when I think about the people you're talking to and I think about them. And it's the one that it's not the most emotional thing or anything for me on there.
Really?
It's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. It sounds like an uncle writing a letter to the to the kids, which it is, really.
Yeah.
I feel a bit awkward listening to it, like I'm not in that conversation. And so you've opened it up, like I'm not part of that family, like a broader, wide, like rap Halifax family, sure, but like I'm not in that family in any way, shape, or form. And so it feels a bit like I'm in a place I shouldn't be, but also I feel like that's sort of a beautiful place that you're showing your whole process. Like one thing about the album that I find really cool to me is it's like you're moving through grief, and the songs take on different angles that way. Like Nothing to Me is, it feels like desperation in it, spend it all on this bitch, it's nothing to me, like screaming fuck the world, like that's definitely a stage of one of the 7 stages of grief, is that sort of fucking anger, like fuck it.
Yeah.
But your anger is also kind of scary in that one, because it's not an anger that I've heard you have before, or I've heard other people have before, where they're mad, they're gonna knock you out. It's, I don't care if I'm here anymore.
It's a sense of hopelessness in that song.
Yeah, it's despair.
Like, fuck it anyways, let's run towards these cheap thrills, alcohol, substance, whatever, women.
Yeah.
And that was based off a night that I had in New Jersey. And it was just a night where I was getting really into the alcohol, went to a strip club, and I was just like, fuck everything.
Yeah.
And that was, I feel what you're saying. It's a stage of grief. And then that's why I feel like the order of these songs were placed so strategically.
I wanted to ask you.
Because if you listen through it all,
exactly,
it's 7 songs, 7 stages of grief.
Was that something you thought
That
about?
wasn't, no. But the way I thought about the order, I feel like it just tells the whole story. And then at the end is everything, which is I'm kind of coming for everything. This didn't kill me, I'm stronger now. I'm back.
I feel that. So I feel like your Darkroom analogy works on every song, but it also works on the whole package of the whole thing. As like, I see you go at the beginning, it's like I want to ask you if you're a religious person, but I think it's kind of obvious you sort of are. At least you draw inspiration from sort of scriptural reading or something, because the way you come across in that first song, there's the parts where it's a bit like you're from a pulpit or you're reading from like the Bible or something like that. And it feels that way, but it feels a little bit like you're crying out for like you're hanging on to like mantras to try to make it through, like, hey, like, God, if you're listening, I need you to pick me up. And I need you to show me something at the beginning. But by the end of the album, it's a little bit starting to turn back into like I was about to say Kid Quake, but it's about to turn back into like, I'm coming for everything. Like, it's sort of this positive now that's like, you didn't kill me. You know, like, I gotta go get it all. I gotta go rep for Pat, for myself, for everybody. Like, if anyone believed in you, it was Pat. And it's like, I can't not. I have to. So, but it's interesting that transition. You seem more at the beginning, like not broken. You're very present on, like, you're there, but it's like you're seeking. And then, you kind of going through, like, you go through that early part you're talking about, like, spend it all, like that kind of, that feeling, kind of moving into, then you really getting into your feelings in the second half a lot, like the Try song, all that, even the song before that with Flowers on the Grave, like, it's all of this where you're really, like, you've kind of gone through the anger and the despair, and it's like, well, I'm still here. Mm-hmm. So what is it then, what do you think it is about you that doesn't let that slip into you not being here sitting with me today? Because it'd be easy enough for that to happen to a lot of people. A lot of negative shit. You're in a bad, like that strip club night or other nights like that could have gone even more, could have gone sideways. But what is it about you that brings you, like, instead of you not being here, or instead of you being like, fuck it all for real, and we're all worried about Quake because we haven't seen him in months and he's literally going like, we're worried about this life, to making this?
I've discovered a long time ago that life is a never-ending set of problems. And either you fall in love with solving those problems, or you give up, or you're gonna be miserable because you don't wanna solve the problems. So I'm trying to learn to solve the problems as they come, and because I know it's my duty. I know it's my duty to myself, to my family, just as a man in the universe. And I could either be miserable solving these problems, or I could try to do it and give it my best foot forward. And even if it's the worst circumstances ever, I always try to put my best foot forward, and I never give up. I'm a competitive guy. I could never go out like that. I could never go out like, oh no, he gave up. It didn't work out for him. My story is gonna be a success story in the end. Period. I've already written it. I've already manifested it. And it's like, yes, I could be going through my emotions and talk as if I don't want to be here. Those are emotions and things I'm working through. Sure. But at the end of the day, there's an overall bigger picture in my head that I know that I am here for a different reason. And there's no giving up in any shape or form in my head, in the macro. Right. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, yeah. You sound like, do you meditate?
I don't. I try to.
You sound kind of like you have a meditative way of thinking of life, because the way you described that was that you have the ability to say, the things I'm observing and feeling are, in meditation, there's sort of a phrase, and I'm going to bastardize this, but it's like this. The idea that, like, our thoughts and feelings are this river, and that they're just moving, and we can just watch them go by, but we're still us over here on that meta, just seeing it. And so you could be like, man, I feel like, I could go this route. I could jump in there and take that, but I can see all these. Like that, you're very...
Because in meditation, correct me if I'm wrong, it's I might not. You focus on your breath, and if a thought pops in your head, you acknowledge it, but you let it go. Yeah. You just let it go. And I don't meditate, but I think that it comes back to being present. Because they say anxiety is worry about the future, depression is worry about the past. And I think being present is really the key to 100%. Peace. Yeah. And feeling. And you know what's crazy? It's wild. Like this is gonna go left field, but a game that has taught me how to be present and taught me a lot about life that I've been really getting into in my later years is golf. Huh. And I find that almost meditative. Yeah. Because there's so many parallels to life. If you think about it, you have to be present for each shot. So if you make a bad shot, and then you let that drag on to your next shot, it's in your head, it's mental, and you're stepping over the ball for your next shot, thinking about that I fucked up. You're gonna mess up the next shot. And then that's gonna be a domino effect that spirals. So it's almost like, mistakes are inevitable. Yeah. Failure is inevitable on any path to success in life. So it's almost like when you fail at that shot or you make that mistake, it's almost like finding that way to be present so that you can carry on with your best foot forward. And that's how I try to live life. And so I'm not perfect. It's not always gonna work that way.
You're human.
Yeah, I'm human, but that at least I'm conscious of that. Yeah. And that's how I try to carry myself.
You are such a You're such an athlete because it comes up a lot, but I like it. It's easy to talk through that analogy. I've always found pro athletes amazing to me, good shift or bad shift, how they can leave it behind. Like you got 20,000 people screaming that you're the greatest thing ever or the worst thing ever, and somehow you just like next shift. I've never done anything. It's just a new shift today, or new whatever whatever it is, and like. I don't know. That to me, that's almost more impressive than the actual skill, is the ability to stay in the moment.
I find other sports is more macro. Like he had a bad game, but within golf,
it's every
for a professional,
moment.
you take 69 shots.
Yeah.
So it's like you could be the best shot of, this is the greatest. An example, one of the greatest shots in golf ever came from a mistake Tiger Woods made. He chipped it over the green. It was terrible shot. And then the green is just on this big hill, and it led up to the greatest, arguably, shot in golf history. And he chips it 20 feet on the left, I believe it was the left of the hole. And it goes up, and then it rolls down this hill, and the ball's rolling slowly, and then it stops right on the Nike logo for like a 1 second count, and then drops in. And then that shot would have never came if it wasn't for that previous mistake.
The world's first deep fake.
Yeah.
The shot was so good. Like, how did the swoosh stay?
Swoosh stay?
It's too good. Perfect. Yeah. That's interesting. I've definitely been sort of following your golf sagas.
I think golf is also another parallel it has with life. It tells you a lot about someone's character.
Huh.
Because you have to hold yourself accountable. What did you get on this hole?
Right.
Someone says, I got a 6. You know they got a 7.
Right.
I don't trust that person in life anymore. And I think that's why golf is such a businessman's sport. It really shows you about someone's character. Can I trust this person? Is he honest? Did he count his drop? Did he kick it? Did he kick it with his foot to give him a little better? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I feel like, or is he honest? Does he play? Does he count all his strokes? And I feel like it shows a lot about someone's character. That's another parallel,
For sure. I want to talk about a song on that project that's really different to me than the rest of them, which is Try.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about, like, how did that generate itself?
Man, it's like, why? I don't mean to laugh. I'm looking at Joel, my camera guy. But, okay, so, man, first of all, I had this trip planned in New York. It was called Airbnb Beats. A friend of mine, a producer I had previously met, he split with his wife. He was going through a divorce, so he had to sublet the other room in his house to make rent. So he did this thing, Airbnb Beats. An artist comes, pays half the rent, stays with him for the month, and creates. So I had this book before Pat passed away and everything. So I was in New York. I came back home for my sister's wedding, and then I had planned to go there and do this month with this producer, a genius musician, Chucky Kim. And Pat had passed. Same weekend my sister died. My sister got married, sorry. And so I was like, I don't think I'm gonna go on this trip. And then I thought to myself, Pat would want me to go, and it's already booked, and I'm so glad I went. It ended up being such a beautiful moment because he was going through a divorce. I was going through this loss. And we kind of formed a brotherhood throughout the course of that month that was just such a special time. We were both grieving. We were both going through it. And we were partying together. We were laughing together. There was days I was crying. And I could tell he was going through it. And he's pep talking me. I'm pep talking him. And me, him, and Joel just had this crazy bond that I think will be a brotherhood for life as a result of that. So one night, we're all sitting in this place. We're pretty drunk, and I think I even smoked weed, which I don't really smoke weed anymore. I smoke weed. And I was like, and he was just this musician that when you wake up every morning, he'd be playing the piano, or at night he'd be playing the guitar. So we're smoking weed, and he's playing this beautiful, like, sad shit on the guitar, and I start freestyling like a country singer, but I'm doing it as a parody, like a comedy.
Yeah.
So I'm like making fun of people. I forget what I was making fun of everyone and making fun of local art. I'm just having fun, like, you know what I mean? Riffing. And Joel has a recording of that, which is fucking hilarious to listen back to now, which that'll never see the light of day. But
blackmail too.
So I remember the next night we were making some song and it wasn't really going anywhere. The verses were dope. The beat was all right. And then I was like, yo, play that shit you were playing yesterday. Because I'm like, I just want to see what happens. And it just so happened, as soon as he starts playing it, I'm like, wow, this is really sad. What if I actually took this serious? Like didn't make it a parody vibe and actually dug deep on this. And it just so happened there was a girl there, one of his friends, who came from a super wealthy background. Her family was like 2% top richest in the country they're from. And so there was another dynamic here, but then she started opening up to me as soon as the guitar started going. It kind of like opened up this portal for her to tell me about her life. And she told me she's never been happy and she's depressed, and on paper they have everything, and she's a beautiful girl, and you would think everything is, you know, hunky-dory, and how she was just suicidal and struggling with addiction. And so we had that conversation for about an hour. Then I started tapping into my feelings about Pat and everything. And I swear, I kid you not, I don't know where the song came from. I don't know where the notes came from. I've never sung like that before. I've never really, I don't know.
Does it feel good?
We turned the mic on and I did it. And that was that. And I never thought it would be anything. It wasn't, so when I was in New York, it was like, friends would be like, show me some of the top songs you're making over there. It would never be that. I never sent anyone. It'd be like the last song. I almost didn't show it to my manager. And then I almost didn't show it to my friends. I'm like, oh, that's just something we did as a fucking, you know, as a trial and whatever. This is something to do, trying something. And then when I showed it to everyone, they were like, wow, this is something. So then other people had to believe in it before I believed in it, to be honest with you, because 100%. I was insecure about I'm singing, it's country. And then, you know, people like Gordy Sampson, who's top country writer, is telling me this is incredible. I'm like, okay, this is serious. Like, I got something here, but I didn't see it at first. I was lost in the motions at first, and it just was part of the shuffle. And I made maybe 40 songs that month or ideas, and it just wasn't something I was focusing on at that time. So it's kind of crazy how it's people's favorite now and shit like that. Like,
to me, if it's like it's literally like the signpost of change in you. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like something like this has been itching under your skin for a long time to not go left or whatever, but like, I've seen you with these singing like songwriter camps and things, you know, and I see your music change, but it was still staying very much in this like rap lane. Yeah, and you can body that.
The songwriting changed, but it was still in the rap lane.
Still in the rap lane. Yep. It was, the storytelling was getting more singer-songwriter, more expansive, but
folk almost.
Yes, but I feel like, isn't rap music really folk music?
It is.
It's just up, like when we freeze something in time, then we say folk music is this thing in the past that sounds diddly-dee or whatever, but folk music is of the people. And so like, rap music is the ultimate folk music really today. But I feel like you've just taken, like, to me, if there's anything that screams that this growth has been positive, is that thing comes out feeling so raw and yet so confident. Mm-hmm. Like, which is funny to hear the way it came about, but maybe that's why it's that way, is like, it's the most open I've ever felt you on a track. Like, you could have said all kinds of words that were saying you're open, but it's just the way you leave space, which leads me to something else. Mm-hmm. Almost every track has a lot of space at the end when you're not. The musicians get a lot of space. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about that. Why is that the case? I have something I like about it, but I
love that. I've always liked
rapping at the end of
crazy guitar solos and shit like that. Like 80s electric, go off. I don't know. I love that shit. And I feel like it's kind of like a sound I developed that not a lot of people do in hip hop. I mean, not that I hear, you know, like.
I love it because on every track on this album, there's a lot to think about. And you give the audience space to think about it.
You can reflect after.
Space to do your thinking.
You're reflecting.
Like, this whole album is so, and I don't mean to keep going back there, but it's so much about like sitting with your real feelings and being real with them. And so the feelings I get in the song, in the first part of a song, I got the space at the end to kind of deal with them and think about them. And it's like, I just kept thinking the space to process.
Well, I've discovered a long time ago that, I don't know, when you start asking yourself questions like, who are you making music for? Or better yet, how is the person gonna listen to this? Are they gonna listen to, like, so you have to start thinking about these when you're younger, like, okay, do I make music that's gonna be played at a party when there's 100 people around, or do I make music that someone is gonna sit alone in their headphones on the bus and reflect about their life?
Right.
And obviously that's more of my lane. And I discovered that a while ago. And this one, I just want to push that further. let people sit by themselves and listen and just reflect. And if you have gone through something similar, relate. And you'd be so surprised, the least people I would expect, people I know and shit like that, hitting me up, yo, I'm actually going through a divorce right now, or, I just lost custody of my kids, or I just lost my brother, or countless stories of people who just, I don't know, I guess you would never expect, or you think everything seems good on the outside. And that kind of showed me that everyone is fighting a secret struggle, and there's no exceptions. Some people are just better at hiding it than others. I've learned that. Because I used to feel so alone when I felt depressed and sad. Yeah. I used to feel like I'm the only person in the world that feels this way. Right. I'm the outcast. Why am I the one that's fucked up? Yeah. And then you make music about this shit and your feelings, and then you realize everybody's fucked up. Yeah. Everyone's fucked up. It's just we see the version of people they're presenting to the world. Yeah. And we're all presenting a different version 100%. Of the world than what we're sitting with our actual thoughts.
Something I've noticed and this might be too broad, that fits with what you're saying is, I think before you were doing, not all the time, I mean, that's something I don't want to typecast you as like one sound of rap, because you've made a lot of different sounds and emotions, like, don't get me wrong, like that. But what I mean is, a lot of the time it was sort of still in that lane to me of like aspirational rap. Like, way up. Like, stuff that was just like, I'm the king of the East. Like, look at me. The kind of raps where, I want to repeat them and be cool like that too. That kind of rap that, we all love, where it's like that braggadocio a bit. You'd bring it home where it was kind of like braggadocio on, like swag on the city itself. Like, I'm better than all y'all. And I love that of it. And like, I want MCs to eat and eat, like eat it. I want them to fight, and not really, but I want them to battle each other. This one got down with, and I don't mean this in a weird way, but like the everyday. It lost the aspirational while still keeping it the level of like, I'm, King Quake, whatever. Like, it still was that. It was still this like,
without saying it.
Like even just, I'm in Jersey. Like, for people around here who never leave Scotia, just even that, I'm in Jersey, like, just you're in another place. You've and other things you've referenced, local clothing posted and, overseas in my local, like, you've said all these things before. This one's like, almost like that's a given. I know me. Like, this is like, I know me. I don't like, Jay-Z's a bad example, but he doesn't need to come on and tell me about his money right now.
It's almost like if you are that guy, you don't need to talk about it. You don't have to say it.
But you then instead, I think what you've given now is something that will last even longer, because every time something changes, like there's a new model of car, you got to update what the aspiration is. Yeah. But this is, unfortunately, these are things people are going to deal with forever. And so like the try thing is forever. It's evergreen. It unfortunately will always, like in the sense of people being in that pain. It's like, to me, it's like you found a way to make the pain relatable and fly. And like repeatable. Yeah. Repeatable. Like, think of those dudes, especially dudes. I mean, I'm speaking to them more directly, who don't know how to put anything into words. I mean, I think you've sort of pointed that about yourself a bit, that it's like, how do we do it? But they'll repeat those lines. They'll repeat your lines. Like, the therapy they're doing by playing that Quake song again, and they're not really sure why they can't stop playing that song and singing in the car, is like, they're working through some shit that they don't know how to work through.
You know what it is? And
you're giving
who taught me this, and this is going to be just such a left field reference as a writer.
Okay.
Larry David. Huh. Because, you know why?
No.
Because I feel that Larry David is able to take situations that everyone thinks about and everyone goes through, but don't quite know how to put into words.
Yes.
And he is able to lay it out perfectly to where you're like, oh my fuck, that just happened to me yesterday. And yeah, that's a comedy, but you can apply that to anything. You could apply it to a song that's deep, a song, whatever. And that showed me like, why is Seinfeld so popular? Why is it? It's because it's so relatable, and it's these little moments of, you have to have a special brain. It's something we go through every day, but it takes a certain scope to be able to, one, notice it, and two, articulate it into words. And that's why it's special, because not everyone can do it. So when someone is able to do it in a way that makes it seem so easy and natural, that you're able to gravitate to it, that's special writing.
I agree. I also think it was really interesting that you did basically that photograph thing I was just talking about earlier. It was like, you were like, you got to see it, you got to grab it, and you got to pull it out of all that other stuff that's happening. I think your writing on this also is different. Earlier off camera, I was saying to you that there's bars there. There's tons of like great, you could pull them out, write them down, look at them, analyze them as bars. But your writing level on this album, I think, has just gone to another place.
Do you know what it is?
It's become almost like, it sounds like you're just talking. And I don't mean that in any slight, but it's become where it's like you run into some comedians and they're not funny because they're not really funny people, but they can write.
Yeah.
It's almost like you've become able to just speak in bars, which doesn't surprise me after all these years. But a lot of what you say is just plain. Like when you say, forget the song right now, or The Flowers on the Grave, I guess, when you say, I'm trying to take responsibility. No way am I playing the victim, it just sounds like you're literally having a conversation with somebody. So to get the bars that are that common, like that simple, they're not like full of all kinds of slang or full of references to shit I don't know, or like, it's just literally, it sounds like someone talking, but there's all these little fly elements and like cool little double entendres and layers.
Sprinkled.
But like, it's not, I feel again, like your confidence, and I don't know if it came because of the, like, once you get to a place where you're like, fuck it all, then the rest of it is like, I'm still here, so might as well be like shine in the moment. It's like you'd stop trying to prove it to us.
Yeah.
In a way, I felt your other albums were like trying to prove to the world how good you were. This one sounds like, I know I'm good. I don't even need to brag about it. You're gonna hear it.
I agree.
You're just gonna hear it.
With the writing, the way you're talking, you want to know what it is? It used to be that sometimes I would write intentionally to write for the punchline.
Yeah.
So like I'm technically good, right?
Sure.
So I'm writing to be technically good and sound good, and like thinking about double entendres, almost like premeditating them, right?
Yeah.
To where now on this project, what I'm saying or what I want to say supersedes the punchline and everything else. It comes before it, and the punchline and the double entendre has a way of naturally falling into place when you put the story first. Because like certain things like, I go from emotional to emotionless, curving on my text like a crescent moon because I got mad tension in my solar plex. Moon, solar.
Oh, it's nice.
Mad in my solar plex. Up late, drinking straight vodka like a Soviet, mind rushing as I'm running from feelings of hope. So it's like these double entendres fall into place when you just describe how you're feeling. And it feels more natural that way. You said comedians, you're not writing a joke.
No.
You're just being honest and the jokes fall into place.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's like you took the shield off. Like you could have written this album that other way and everything would still have a mask on it. Because it was like, I'm hiding behind this here. I'm hiding. This is, I've never seen you so with in front of everything.
Yeah. And
in a way, I feel it's like your government name and who you are when you're not Quake and Quake are, and I find it interesting that you talk about, speaking on Quake in the third person, which I think is awesome personally, but it's like they've become one in a really good way.
Well, you know what I've realized in life? Because this sport, this hip hop sport it's very like, I don't know, it's very high schoolish in a way. Like, it's like, nobody can look weak. No. You gotta have the fly girl. You gotta have, like, it's very almost like surface level like competitiveness and things that don't really matter. And me being a white artist too in this hip hop world, it's like, I got like double to prove and I have to like, I can't let no one get over on me. I can't let, I can't maybe let people see me golfing or doing these food reviews. To where I got to a point where I was like, fuck it all. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do and show the world me and nothing else matters. And that's why you see things manifest where I'm showing more of my personality, like the food reviews. I love tasting food. Golf, I love family. You're just getting to see the real unfiltered me because now I'm secure enough to show you that. And I think a lot of people's mistakes within hip hop, especially as a music, is okay, we have to sound a certain way because this is what's hot, or we have to have this appearance, or we have to be looked at as this guy. Definitely. When at the end of the day, you don't. All you have to be is you.
Yeah, it's what people want.
Which is the easiest concept, but it's somehow so hard to grasp.
Hardest thing.
And it takes you 30 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
And
you're right. I think hip hop, is still very young. Like, it was 50 years or whatever, if you kind of count, where we start in 73 or something like this. But we don't have, and I think this is where you're going to an interesting place too. Like, as you get older, like, I can just see you rapping or making music, certainly, or making music for sure, your whole life. How do you, like, what's the swag in the old age home? And so it's like, we gotta find a way to, like, that youth culture is part of that, right? It's a very youth culture thing. So, like, high school doesn't surprise me, but
I think you're seeing it as it's grown up now, because we haven't really we haven't seen our legends really still keep going until kind of recently.
That's right. We finally have, like, 60-year-old rappers.
Yeah.
We never really did.
You know what's crazy? Some of my favorite rappers now, like, I have rappers that are some of my favorites now who I didn't even look at growing up. Like Jim Jones, for example, is one of my favorite rappers now because he's still honing his craft and, like, he's getting better. And it's like, oh my God, like, he's like, back in the day, if you would have asked me who's your favorite in Dipset, like, I think Cam and Joel's by far superior MCs. But the way Jim is going, it's almost like he knew that narrative or something, and now he's, like, still working towards his craft when maybe Cam is falling back. And I love to see that. It gives me so much hope. It's like, I love seeing Nas do 4 albums in 3 years and sound hungrier than ever. It's incredible. Like, it gives me hope that, okay, maybe there is hope that this genre can have people like the Rolling Stones and touring at 70 and still doing this. And I think as long as it comes from a real place, that's the catalyst. I think as long as it's a real place, because if it's coming from you trying to be young or trying to be that mask, it's not going to resonate. Yeah. But I think we're starting to realize that there's an audience for everything. People are growing up with you. The people that, Nas is 50, the people that grew up with him, now they have kids and they're navigating through family life, or they're dealing with different scenarios than what the youngins are dealing with. So it's like, why? I think, again, be the fuck you. And I think it's the simplest thing, but it's just, that's what it is.
That leads me to something I want to talk to you about. On the album, Many Places, and I think that's why I like going into particular songs, but instead of like a song by song thing, there's a lot of themes that are just throughout it all. You'd often mention, like, sort of as a man, you'll say that, like, take responsibility as a man. I think there's another time you say something about as a man. You talk about, like, not crying, at, like, keeping it tight, the gentleman code. But then you also talk about not being able to talk to anybody with Pat gone and your girlfriend gone. You can talk to your pet. I know you can talk to that. You can talk alone with your thoughts. How do you feel about, like, both being someone who maybe needs to champion a bit of that change that we should, because what you're saying is, like, be yourself, is part of that needs to be, like, I can open up here about stuff. So in a way, I feel like you got, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it's like I can feel a foot in both places. One that's sort of like, there's this, I want to say, like, G code kind of thing, but there's this manly man code. And then there's also, like, the real truth of life, which is all those manly man code people are really going through it. And it would be probably an easier world if we could just open up a little this.
If you take it back to earlier in this interview, remember I said I was trying my best, but nobody's perfect? I think that applies here. I think that at the end of the day, we can know better. We can know the right thing to do. But don't we all have a foot in in two places?
100%.
There's no exceptions.
No.
And I don't think there'll ever be. No. And I think the discipline to try to get both feet in one place is what life's about.
100%.
And I don't think you'll ever. I don't think you'll ever do it because no one's going to reach perfection.
Agreed. I think
but you can try.
Right, utopia.
You can try, and that's what it's about.
If you look up what people say, it'd be utopia, right? If you really look up what utopia means, it's an unattainable state because it's perfection, right? So the goal is to always be striving for that, and that's life. That's that struggle. That's those
You're
problems.
Never gonna reach it.
And so when you get a new problem, that's that thing to digest. That's that grist for the mill to keep you going towards that perfection. But we will never get there because we're human.
Exactly.
And because we're not supposed to. I don't know what would happen then. I mean, it would just turn into energy, I guess, or something.
Another golf parallel you just made me think of. It'll be like, driver is perfect down the fairway every time. Irons aren't working. Next round, irons perfect, hitting it, driver doesn't work.
Right.
So it's a never-ending, like, chase for perfection that you'll never attain. But that's the fun of it. It's the fun of life.
How boring would it be if we were sitting here and you were, like, writing about, how flat your brim is or something. I mean, it'd be boring. You wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, no.
So that challenge is what it is. I was wondering in the light of where this album kind of, well, first, how much of this existed at all before Pat was killed? Did this album, was it parts of it?
General Tao, that's it.
General Tao.
Which is eerily... Oh, Flowers on the Grave, too. Flowers on the Grave.
Okay.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense.
So Flowers on the Grave, sorry, and General Tao, which General Tao eerily works almost as if like it was written after Pat passed away.
Yeah, and it also comes off as like almost like you're still, the emotions haven't sunk in, because the next one I think is Flowers on the Grave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have Flowers on the Grave. That was reproduced like 4 times.
Nicole just
unbelievable.
Kills that.
Unbelievable. I'm so happy to see her win last night.
Kills that.
She deserves it. She's a great person, and she's so talented, and she's one of those people that, you know, you feel like there's certain artists, like they've been in the trenches with me for years. Yeah. Like I remember her from 15 years, and I have so much respect for anyone who's still going, because I know how difficult it is.
It's easy to stop.
You know?
There's every reason to.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me. General Tao I find interesting because in that grief sort of struggle cycle, it almost feels like there's like this sort of plea to the universe in the first song, and then the next General Tao in the next one, it feels a bit like you're kind of almost trying to brush it off. Like that's how it comes, like, not knowing that it was existed before. It feels a bit like, like I'm not gonna let that get too deep. We'll keep it all like just a silly little thing. The songs also fly as hell. Like I like that song.
Thank you.
But it's interesting the order it comes. The question I was gonna ask is like, what does success look like to you? Or what does the concept of that look like to you now in light of, you know, this album, but also like what's happened and like where you are now? I feel like it may have changed what you like. Yeah, sure, you want, you know, I'm sure there's things you'd like, you know, financially or whatever that way. But I'm just wondering, has that changed at all for you? Like your sense of what it means to make a successful project, or it means to make successful art?
I think everyone has a different definition of success. It's whatever you deem it to be. But for me now, I've learned that success is just happiness. Mm-hmm. It's happiness trumps everything. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you could be, I've seen the example for Try. I've seen someone have everything and want to kill themselves. Right. I've seen people with nothing who are happy as hell. Right. And I'd rather have the latter. Yeah. You know? And I think that material things are nice. Sure, I would love to be, like my goal financially is like to just be secure to where I can do my thing. Sure. Drive a Honda Civic. Yeah. And someone I like admire for that type of shit is like, when I was in New York, we got to go see State Property and the Locks, and people like, and we got to hang with Freeway, and people like Freeway and Jadakiss who just are legends, and they perform every weekend, and you know, they're not gazillionaires, they're not just selling out stadiums, but they do their craft and they fucking get to be outside every weekend, and it looks like they're having so much fun. That's my level of, you know what I mean? I don't need a mansion, I don't need anything.
I think that gives you the freedom to make the art you're making, because if it's all like, I need to sell out the O2, then like, you got to make the songs that will do that.
I heard before,
that might not be where you are.
I heard before, if you put goals or projections into numbers, it only leads to disappointment. Because then it's like, oh, well, I didn't reach this number, so it's not a success. But again, it's all perspective. Fuck, what was the book I was reading where, might have been someone from Megadeth, and it didn't quite sell as much. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is the guy from Megadeth, I don't know a lot about rock. Did he used to have something with Metallica or something?
I don't know.
So there was something I was reading in this book. I can't remember. And it was like, this album sold so much, but it didn't quite sell what Metallica, so he looked at it as a failure. Right. And I think that's just life. It's like your scope. Hero, villain, it's all perspective. Whatever you want to zoom in that lens on and focus on, that's going to be your reality. So if you find the positives in things, or you celebrate the struggle, and it's all the way you look at it. It's all perspective. Like, you could find the good and bad in anything. It's just your attitude towards it, how you perceive it becomes your reality. And I've learned to try to find the positive and just be happiness.
I think it's really freed you to make the stuff that you need to make. Like, this is the thing about this album, it felt necessary. It didn't feel, for you, it didn't feel like And I think that's what gave it its strength. I think that's what gives it its so much strength, is that it isn't asking for approval. It isn't asking for anyone to like it even. It's just, this is what I had to do. Like,
I think it's forever. I think
I really do.
I think a lot of the way music is consumed now, or a lot of the way the younger generation is used to music being consumed, it's like, all right, this is the project now, then it's gone. Where's the next one? I feel like this one's a slow burn. And I feel like it's forever. And I feel like it might never get all the flowers I feel it deserves, but I feel like there might even be something 10 years down the road from now to be like, wow, that was a crazy moment in history.
You brought me into the album again, and you brought me right back into Halifax. Because over the years, I remember the time you had, I think it was on a rap music album, you're like, don't call this like Halifax music or something. So you've always sort of had, and I wouldn't say a love-hate, because your love of Halifax is obvious, but you've certainly had that like tension where it was like, I want to be bigger than here. I want to kind of maybe not disassociate from you always rep here, but like, and I think you've also have that, you're looking for some competition. Like that'd be probably one of the best things that could happen to you, would be someone that would, in a sort of friendly way, be like, let's go. Like, because there's not a lot of people that push you. I find
there's few, and they're like, they rap about as much as you see a solar eclipse. People like Psych, and they come out every couple years. And
where's that like Psych and Rel's full project?
Someone like a Psych pushes me to where I'm like, this guy is so ridiculous.
Well, you led me right to what I want to ask. How does it feel to have Psych, give you flowers, as he says, right there on that song? Is that...
It is amazing, but I always tell him he's the GOAT. He says the same to me. We laugh about it. This has been an ongoing thing, and he really is my favorite rapper from here, and I think he's so fucking talented.
He's so good.
He's incredible, and I always try to get him to rap more, but I think there's a beauty in it of him just... Now I'm understanding there's a beauty of him just having a verse every couple of years. It's almost like Andre 3000-esque.
I was going to say J-Elec a little bit.
Yeah.
For a while.
There's something special about it.
It is.
To where I used to get so mad, like, man, why doesn't he
so damn
do
good.
more?
But
now I kind of appreciate it for what it is. There's a beauty to it,
So you also say later in the album, on the last song, on Everything, it's an interesting song the way you talk to the scene here, because you kind of are like, there's no one who can compete with me, like this sort of, there's nothing here that way. But then you also are like any young artist, like keep going, I got you. So talk to me a little bit about that, because one of the things I think that's interesting is like in the void left by Pat not being here, there is also like, he was such a champion of the scene. Like obviously he was a champion in his own right, and he wasn't always championing necessarily like them, but he was there for people. Like he was championing you in ways that people don't even know about, like really pushing people behind the scenes, really cheering them on. I feel like you're more than ever wanting to take a bit of that mantle on.
Yeah, he
like wanting
I've had
a
love-hate relationship with the city and the scene for a lot of years. And there was a lot of years I didn't feel like I was even part of the scene, or like I disassociated from the scene.
I could feel that.
And like, just when Pat passed away, seeing all the personal message, every single person who posted an RIP had a specific transaction, not transaction, what am I gonna say? Exchange with him, like screenshot of like, I'm like thinking, how the fuck did he have time to talk to all these people? Like, and not just like, yo, thanks. Someone says, I try to respond to as many people I can. Someone said, yo, thanks, I appreciate it. But he was having like full-on life conversations with strangers. And it really made me realize after he left that this is what life should be about. And it kind of made me delve more back into the scene. Now I'm hanging out with local artists and Shawnee and Basil and different people, and I feel more like we're one again, or I'm back in the mix now, and it makes me feel good, rather than to be like sitting at home bitter, like fuck all them, I'm bigger than this and that. It's really, again, it's just your own ego that's sabotaging you at the end of the day.
The scene needs you, because how can we... that was a hard thing, and I think I could feel that, like kind of looking at, as a person who was like looking at the scene, and kind of, it was always like, one of our best ever is not integrated in this thing, and in a way it's like, you're that hero to people.
Yeah,
you boost them up, you boost the scene, you boost those kids, like, what you said in there is, I want you to, on camera here, I want you to do that. Like, you know, I got you. Like, I think you can do a lot for like, that's that legacy. And I think you've been after legacy for a long time.
I used to not
like immortalness.
I used to not be concerned about the well-being or the future of the scene in Halifax. I used to not think about the future. I only thought about myself. Right. What is my future? What is, I don't give a fuck about anything else. And now I'm kind of seeing that we are one. And that doesn't just mean the scene. I think we are all one as human beings on this earth.
I agree.
And I think seeing how Pat lived and analyzing it, especially after he died, really taking notice of it, was one of the things that inspired me to have that outlook.
That's huge. I'm wondering, like, now that you have this out and people are starting to, you know, talk about it more and more and digest it, like, I know you're always making things, but.
Yeah, I recorded like 2 little ideas, like new, but nothing crazy yet. But I'm dipping and dabbling back in and seeing where I'm trying to go with it. And
how was the live show for you?
Man, it was incredible. Like, it was a couple of friends were making fun of me because I kept saying, I don't feel like I deserved it. I said it like 3 times.
Yeah, you did.
But it was like, damn, like, I haven't seen a crowd like this unless I open for someone. And when you're opening for someone, you feel that energy of like, they're not here to see me. They're just getting through this until they get to the main person they're here to see. But it's different when you're the guy they're here to see. And you look out there, you're like, oh, shit. And I've never really had that type of a moment before in this city.
They were there.
And it was just, I was so grateful. And man, it was one of the best nights ever, man. The love was in the air, and I feel like it was just, everyone felt the pain and everyone felt the highs, the lows, and I feel like everyone just went through the entire story with me. And it was comforting to see other people there to experience the journey with me.
Yeah, no, it was a big moment, and it felt like I felt like you really very respectful to Pat and the memory, while being very celebratory too. And you really, again, I think your stage performance, I wanted to mention this, I think it's elevated a little bit because you seemed, again, not guarded. You seemed just raw up there than I've seen. I've seen you on
I feel like
stage.
I'm clear as shit on the mic. Let me just say that. Like, I feel like, no disrespect to anyone.
You mean mic skills?
I just feel like my voice is so clear on the mic.
Yes.
Like, and I don't know what it is or why, but I just feel like there's a difference. I'm not gonna give myself the flowers right now, but like, I'm really noticing this shit now. Like, my shit is clear, and I don't know why. Maybe it's from all the years, but I feel like there's a difference. Like,
well, it's all that practice at home with the
lint roller.
Yeah. That's the key right there.
For sure.
That is a big issue for a lot of people. Please don't hip hop the mic, as we call it. You know.
Yeah, the sound. They get mad at the cupping the mic, but it looks so stupid if you hold it like Bob Barker down here.
True. What about a lapel? You can use both hands.
I don't know.
You just seemed like the album, it wasn't just something that was a studio thing. And that's what I think is like, I want to give you that compliment. It wasn't something that you are still isolated with. You were able to bring it in public, and I felt like the vibe of your openness stayed there while you were on the stage. Like,
yeah,
so
I needed to make this album for closure in a lot of ways. And it was just a therapeutic process. I needed to make this album for closure. And it feels like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, just getting that out there. Because I think just writing is very therapeutic for me. And when I write it and release it, it's almost like that door closes and I feel at peace until the next set of problems comes back around. And then, you know.
I could see you literally teaching people I could see you being an art therapist, to be honest. Like
art therapist? I never heard of that.
It's a whole genre of the way people do some therapy is like they'll make things with not with the artist, their art therapist necessarily, but the art therapist might say, here's some things that you like, let's try painting your feelings or whatever, you know, those sort of things. It's sort of that's a low bar of the version. But I guess that's one thing I want to ask. I mean, it seems kind of obvious that you use your art making as therapy.
Yeah.
Have you always done that? We just didn't really look at it that way?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've always done that. I think I've always been pretty open with my music, and I don't know, there would be songs in the mix whereas you would call having the guard up. Yeah. But like, I think from even the Myth, there's always songs like Outside Looking In is me writing a letter to myself. Like, there's always been shit like that, I feel. But yeah, it just helps me to whatever I'm going through. Like, and obviously I've never experienced anything before, like losing Pat. Like that was something new to me. Like I never thought I would have to go through that. You know what's crazy? Last night I was at ECMA's and I was talking to a elder from the Native community. And so, I don't know, some days, you know, my anxiety gets me. And there was just one day I woke up in particular and it's just irrational, thinking in my head, like, I wonder if Pat's up there mad at this. Something that happened, I'm not gonna speak on it, or like just a situation like, I wonder if he's thinking, you know, because when someone passes away, you go through every fucking timeline of every interaction. I'm taking an inventory. Right. And I stumbled upon this one thing and my brain was like, I wonder if he's mad about this. Like, irrational, just, I don't know why. So I end up playing golf that day, and on the 18th hole, I see an eagle fly down right in front of me and fucking grab a fish out of the water and fly off. So I was having this very spiritual, I felt something when it happened. It was like a spiritual moment for me, and I was like, something like Pat went through my head, and then I was like, okay, I'm not gonna get too crazy here, deep into this, but there was some sort of something that happened. So last night when I was having this conversation with the Native elder, I asked him, because we were talking about spirituality, and I asked him, is there any significance of witnessing an eagle fly down in front of you and catch a fish? And he said, yes, in our beliefs, it's a sign from someone who has passed on, a loved one, letting you know that everything's okay. And man, it almost brought me to tears because I was struggling in my head over this thing, this stupid little thing. I'm like, is Pat mad at me for this? Yeah. And then, you know, seeing this sign of like, everything's okay. Yeah. Man, it was fucking crazy.
I think that you tip your hand to your spirituality a lot on this album. And I think you kind of always have. I personally think the more that we keep our eyes open to those things, the more we start to see them, and the more we start to, when you like you see a coincidence or something, you're like, it's a coincidence. Yeah. But if you say, well, what if it isn't, and then keep seeing them as not, it starts to build that like muscle up that you can see those things and that you can sort of embrace them. Like I personally, over the last while, I've really tried to like kind of ask questions out to like the universe and then just kind of see what comes back.
Well, like, do you know about quantum physics at all? Like the double slit test and like in all this, in
like Schrodinger's
law of attraction and everything. It's like, it's scientifically proven that like every thought is a frequency and you attract like frequencies. And I think that what you put out there is what comes back. Like, have you ever thought about a person you never talked to in a while?
Yes.
And then they text you or call you immediately?
Yes.
Like, I don't think that's a coincidence.
No, I don't either.
I feel like there is a level to this world that they don't tell us about, or they don't want us to know about, that exists. And I think that there's a lot of books on it, like Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, and different books. The Secret is a popular movie. Yeah, but these books about the law of attraction and quantum physics on how you can literally attract whatever you want into your life. And I really believe in it. I really believe
I agree with you. I think that we live in a very limited existence of what human beings can actually do. I think that we could do all the things that we were told in the past as fairy tales. I think we can shapeshift. I think we can completely communicate psychically over distance. I think we can do all that shit all the time. I think we can talk to anybody in the world right now, in my mind, if we could hone that and get to that reality. Like right now, people be like, "You're crazy."
So do you think it's been suppressed? That muscle, if you will, has been suppressed over just many years, where we don't even think it's like possible anymore? Because like, think about it. Think about it. You go to school. They're building workers. You go to school, you get a job for someone else. Like, it's never, and anyone who ever goes outside of the realm of like, of, okay, maybe this is possible, like an Elon Musk or whoever, the world's taught to hate them. They're like, oh, he's an asshole. Like, whoever, Kanye.
He's also loved.
Whoever, Kanye, it's always like, let's put the worst of this person, the worst clips, and because we don't want people thinking like
I don't think either of them are operating on the level I'm talking about, though.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying anyone who even challenges normality. I'm not saying about that level, but even one step over is shunned.
I agree.
And I think there's a pattern of how we're sent to school, we're taught to become workers, and watch our media that we own, and we'll tell you what we want you to hear,
100%.
and live in this fucking bubble. And anyone who tries to poke even a foot outside this bubble, when really there's probably eons outside this bubble.
Yeah.
But anyone who even gets close to the bubble to even look outside of it is shunned. Yeah. That's how I feel.
I agree. I think there's so much evidence here of other ways of viewing the world and other ways of living in the world that exist way beyond anything we have. I mean, even just to look at China, they have over 15,000 years of written history. Mm-hmm. So we're over here talking about, 2,000 whatever. Like they're like, but we have books that go back. What are you talking about? Yeah. I also think that it's not so much even that suppression. I think, it was so much like enlightenment, like killing people who were like, I believe that if I go by this tree and kind of sit here all day, I get a good sense of like where I should plant my crops. You're a fucking witch. I'm going to kill you. So we literally actually were killing people who were trying to talk about like integration and all that stuff. I had this conversation
with my friend the other day. The witch, the killing. It's like, was it really just spiritual people? Then they're like, we can't have you thinking like this. Fuck.
Right.
Get rid of them.
No, and I think it's like, organized religion is a big problem because if that's a huge problem because if you say there's one God, believe in it, it looks like this, and I say, but I got this other thing, and when somehow that turns me into killing you, then we got a problem because I'm going to shut my mouth. And I think, so what I think is, kind of like your album, to bring it back, there's way more people all around us all the time who are doing that shit. They might not be time traveling or whatever, but they're at home going, that wasn't a coincidence.
No.
They're at home like thinking about my mom. Oh, the phone rang. Oh, that's always happens with my mom. We got that connection. Think how many people would say something like that.
Yeah.
And they're this close to believing we could do that with more, but they just can't go there. Like I think their album was that thing that wrote to everybody. I think everybody also operates on those ways, just doesn't talk about it because they sound crazy.
Have you ever had a lucid dream?
Yes.
That feels real. Shit. It's crazy.
I have a 7.5-year-old child who's been asking me often, not like, they'll sometimes, is this a dream? And then they'll tell me, how do you know the difference? And I was like,
I don't know if there is a difference.
And I guess back to quantum, there's an idea that like, we're just in this one.
We're spiritual beings in this vessel, I feel.
Oh, 100%. And so I think that's also like that. And so the more you embrace that, I think I see that in your outputs because now it's not so much about what this life is about. It's about these bigger, longer issues.
The bigger picture. I think if you take the time to look at the bigger picture in life, you're 1,000% going to be better at life. Everything is going to go better. And I feel like a lot of these like disputes and things that come with hip hop culture is like, it's off impulse. It's very impulsive.
Yeah.
Someone makes a decision that could change yours and someone else's life forever from something so minuscule that if you step back and look at the bigger picture, you might approach it differently. And I feel like just taking that second to stop and think is such a big thing, especially for males, young males. I feel like we've even before the age of 25, they're so impulsive and could make a decision that could change your life forever without thinking about it. And I try to give advice and tell these kids this shit, but they have to get burned to
gotta touch the stove.
Feel it, right? They gotta touch the stove, right? Because I wasn't hearing it either. No. So it's like, I don't know, man.
And that's that different time. I think you're, in a way you're talking about elder, but in a way, you certainly are an elder in the scene here. And I think you're right. Like there's the music for young folks. There's the lessons they got to learn. And like, you got to play that role as the elder saying, I told you, I tried to warn you. I tried to tell you. That's what people did. But they got to play those roles. I think you're more and more stepping into that. I really appreciate you including Pat's voice on the album too. I thought that was a great clip. I mean, of all the things that Pat said and could be quoted, like that one was wonderful. And it leads me to, so I wanted to ask you about, like on the album, there's the loss of your friend, there's loss of that relationship. Well, I wouldn't say that based on what you've been saying. That relationship isn't over or anything. It's just different. You still talk with Pat. You still get visited by Pat, apparently. And so, it's not over, it just moved. But there's also on that album, you talk about the end of a relationship. I think that's a really great end of a relationship song, especially from a male perspective. But you also talk about, and I've seen it in your, people that follow you, social media, like sort of this, there's a new little kid in your life who seems to have also given you a different perspective on what it is to be around. Like, can you talk about sort of like bad influence? Like, because that seems to be, that seems to be cracking open Quake in a different way than I've ever seen. Because I've never seen you be as like goofy.
Yeah.
At least in product you're putting out.
Yeah.
Like maybe in person, you're pretty, for people that don't know, Quake might come off as like a very serious dude, but he's pretty damn funny and kind of a hilarious dude. But there I see you kind of being like, I don't know, talk to me about that. That seems like an awesome
She's
influence.
amazing. And you know what kills me is that it's this, I said it in the song, but it's she's the same age as Pat's stepdaughter was when he came into her life. Yeah. And just watching him, it's almost like I watched it all play out before I got to experience it. And now I'm literally experiencing it. And I wish so bad I could talk to him about it. Yeah. And like, cause this is like, I don't know, this is a time where I wasn't thinking about the big picture. Everything was all just, what is my future and what's my career? And then you see this little, beautiful kid come into your life and it teaches you so much about life. Like, you know, if she says something a little smart to me, like, and I can feel like, damn, that hurt my feelings. I'm like, damn, so when I was saying this to my mom, this is how my mom felt. And it's like, you almost get a taste of your own medicine. And it's like, it's such a beautiful thing. And it's almost like you're not being selfish anymore. You're not thinking only about yourself. You're like, you have to mold this little kid. And like, the stupidest little things, like she couldn't open the door in the hallway in the building. And I was like, turn it down like this and then put your whole body weight into it. Put your shoulder into it. And one day she went in, because she used to get stuck and I'd have to open it. One day she went and she opened the door and put her shoulder into the door, popped open. And it was something so small, such a fucking proud moment for me. I'm like, wow, like I just taught this kid how to do this. And it really opened my eyes to where the fun I used to think, okay, we have to go to a bar, we have to have some beers, or else life is not fun. I would get bored. Yeah. And now like I'm having so much fun in a different way that is like I never even knew existed before. And it's fucking beautiful, man. I'm just fortunate. And I feel like it all just happened at the right time. And I feel like I needed that in my life. I needed it to slow down on the path I was going, you know?
Yeah, I think kids in your life humble you because they also take it like if the movie of your life, especially before that, is you're the main, you know, you're always going to be like the main character in the story, but they kind of move you out of that position a bit. It's like, I'm not the main character in my own story. It's like, I'm actually a supporting role to that story.
It's weird to get used to. It's a weird transition.
Big time.
Like, God damn, is this whole day gonna be about you? Like, can I have some shine?
It is.
And that's what you think at first. Or like, she'll say something smart to you at first in your head, you'll be like, if a normal person said this to me, I'd be like, fuck you. And then you realize, oh shit, she's 4.
I can't do that.
It's like,
and that modeling thing is amazing for me because whenever I'm stuck in any scenario, anywhere, from the minute my child was born, it's such an easy way to tell me what to do. All I have to think is, what would I tell them if they were in this situation? And I never, ever give them, in this hypothetical, bad advice or my advice that might be like, I don't like that, or I'm scared of that, I don't want to do that, whatever, I hate that person. It's never that. It's always like, be upfront, you know, it's all the good shit. So as soon as like this, what would I tell them? I'm like, well, that's what I do. Like, and it's so clear there. But no, man, I got to say, like, I'm proud in many ways, as a Haligonian, all the ways, as a lover rap, but like, also just like, I really like a lot of things you're saying in there, I think, to men. I think you're talking a lot about having a code, but also opening up what that means to get in these places where we don't get in these, like, we don't go alone into the dark places. Like, we are all there, and men are really bad at that. Yeah. I think that's part of that training. That's part of what keeps us from being the whole being we can, is not embracing all those pieces and saying, that's who I am. Like, let's roll with that. And it's been an honor to get to chat with you about this. I think I've been watching you kind of slowly roll this, or not slowly, but roll it out. And there's something that you do that makes me really, like, when I was talking about your love affair, sort of love-hate with Halifax, is like, this is where you do the stuff that, like, you can't do anywhere else. Like, there might be a reason why me and you got together here in Halifax, other than this being somewhere else. I'm sure other people would love to sit with you and talk about this, but you come home when you gotta come home. And, you know, like, that's when you touch back. It's like, to talk about touch grass, you know, but I feel like for you, it's like, maybe the best thing ever, sitting with like Shawnee or somebody and just being in Halifax or doing this here makes sense to me. And it's an absolute honor to been called at off the bench here to
I really
this,
want to thank you, man. This has been amazing, and I just really want to tell you like how much I respect your craft at this and your conversation, and that's the reason why I thought only you to do this.
Brother.
So
Appreciate
man,
that.
thank you, man.
Always.
My man. Okay, man.
No, really.
My man.
It's
Thank
the
you,
shit.
man.